Hey guys, Charlie Murphy here. Thank you for choosing my video. Today I'm playing some 5, 10, 6 max no limit games on Ignition. Oh. Upper left-hand table, I will open Jack 10 offsuit from the button using a 44% range. Upper left-hand table, I'll open Ace Queen from the cutoff using a 28% range. You're calling from the small blind. It's already a little bit suspicious. He's not 3-betting pre-flop. Perhaps an indication that he's not a very serious player. Big blind comes along as well. We get a Jack 7-7 rainbow flop. I won't be range betting, but I won't be range checking here either. Multi-way, but in position. I think I bet my sevens, my overpairs, some good jacks, and some of my gut shots. Ace Queen, I'll just happily check back, move closer towards showdown, try to peel an overpair, or turn a gunshot like I did there. He bets 30 into 70. I can float there with the overcard, the gut shot, the blocker to the flush draw. Got there with the Broadway straight. A couple orbits ago, I bluff raised this guy on a 4-straight board, and he quickly snapped me off with top pair, top kicker. It was a low 4-straight board. I had king high with no showdown value. I'm going to definitely go ahead and put in another raise here. Half pot for the real small size as you go a bit larger. I think he'll probably be suspicious of me because I did that last time. Although the small bet size is probably a bit more indicative of not being strong, whereas I did it against about a 60% bet size last time. Either way, definitely want to try to raise to get some value in there, even without some inclination. There may be a bit more of a dynamic going on because of a hand we just played right before the recording started. Upper right-hand table, I'll open Ace-Jack from under the gun using an 18% range. Big blind calls. I get a king 8-3 two-tone board. I will be range betting, assuming he checks to me. Range betting small. He does. Mostly checking the turn where I can go ahead and bet if I pick up an ace or a gut shot really here with the heart blocker in my hand as well. On the 6th to push the double flush draw up there, I've got ace high. I'm content to play overbet or check and check back a hand like ace high with no real draw. So I'll go ahead and check this and try to turn some kind of bluff catch or a hand I can value bet. Can value bet or bluff catch if I may pair up either my ace or my jack. He overbets into me. Definitely not going to be bluff raising against that size. Trying to decide if there's any merit in hero calling. Probably not as weak as ace high. He could even be doing this with a hand like, 4-3 that paired up and that doesn't have showdown value. And hero calling when you don't even beat all the bluffs is a little bit too aggressive. If I've got a hand like ace 10, queen 10, it gets a bit more curious. But here I'm just going to go ahead and fold my ace jack and not make too big a deal out of the whole thing. Get a player playing low 40 blinds min raise and keep an eye on him right there because he's got a funky stack size. Hasn't seemed particularly fishy yet, but he's playing short, so he's probably not a real serious reg either. Upper left-hand table, going to open king, queen suited from the button using a 44% range. Blind on blind, upper left-hand table, get a 3x open. I'm going to 3-bet a smattering of hands, including my suited connectors like 8-7, 7-6, 6-5 suited. I'll go ahead and put in the 3-bet. 3-betting very aggressively in the spot, 17, 18%. Pocket nines are better, ace, queen plus, suited broadways, offsuit hands, and then some suited cards as well, just to kind of give myself coverage all over the board. On the ace-6-6 rainbow board, going to go ahead and put in a small range bet. There are some backdoor equity cards I can pick up, 5s, 9s, spades, can keep barreling on. A player that I thought might be weak because of his pre-flop calling tendencies and the shorter stack guy are both sitting out. Looks like this table's about played out. Blind on blind, I'll open all my offsuit aces, including ace-4, using about a 45% range. Lower right-hand table, middle position player opens 2.3x. I've got ace-9 suited, going to be continuing with that, mostly for a call. Not too much merit in 3-betting here, just calling is fine. Upper left-hand table on the button, I will open 6-4 suited using a 44% range. He bets 3/4. Well, I do have ace high on a low paired board, and it can be good a decent bit of the time. There's really not many good turn cards for me. 9 still has me in trouble against overpairs in this tighter formation, and an ace I can be up against aces that dominate me. I don't have any sort of backdoor flush draw. I mean, he's using a larger size. I'm going to be content to fold a bit earlier as opposed to a bit later when things just don't look all that great for me on a variety of potential runouts, even the better possible cards for me, such as pairing up. So I'll just go ahead and fold, and if he's doing that with Jack High, more power to him. He's allowed to win with the worst hand some of the time. Lower right-hand table, blind on blind. I will open ace-6 suited using a 45% range. Quads on the upper right-hand table. Lower left-hand table, I'll open blind on blind with ace-8 using the 45% range. Lower right-hand table, open ace-8 from the button using the 44% range. Lower left-hand table, get a 2.5x open from the cutoff. I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet from the button with my ace-4 suited. 3-betting very aggressively in this spot, about 13%. Maybe not all my suited aces, but all the wheel aces. Probably any suited Broadway, any 2 cards 9 or higher that are suited, ace-jack plus king-queen, pocket 7s are better in the wheel aces. Something like that's a pretty reasonable 3-bet range, button versus cutoff against a standard race first end size like 2.5x. First hand at the upper left-hand table, blind on blind. I am, of course, going to be 3-betting with my pocket aces, 3-betting very aggressively here, 17, 18%. Get called, get a nice low, fairly uncoordinated board, 9-6 deuce rainbow. Going to go ahead and put in a small range bet after he checks to me. Lower right-hand table, 3x open for middle position. The big blind, I want to be a little bit tighter against those 3x opens. I'm not going to call all my Broadway cards like Jack 10, King 10 up, so just go ahead and fold those. I get check raised here in this blind battle. Let's see here. There's about 200 in the pot, and I bet about 60. So there's about 320. Check raises me about half. What I think I want to do is I want to go ahead and call here and float. I'm not too worried about aces being vulnerable and give him a chance to just barrel off with a worse overpair, some kind of bluff hand. He checks the turn. Once again, my hand is not that vulnerable. I do block the backdoor flush draw. I block all sorts of 2 pairs with the deuce on the board pairing. I do also block ace-deuce suited if he has that to some extent, at least with the diamond combo. I'm content to go ahead and check back and give him another chance to bluff at me. Lower left-hand table, get a 2.4x open for middle position. I will 3-bet from the small blind with my king 10 suited. 3-betting about 9%. He jams all in. I got him to do what I wanted. I call off. He made king 9, so he made 2 pair, but they were counterfeited. So what I was talking about, that board pairing card with that deuce, making my aces even more protected, that actually manifested right there and helped me pick up a stack. Makes me happy when it works out that way. And I think his play is actually pretty reasonable too, all things considered. I don't mind defending the 3-bet with king 9 suited out of position in a blind battle. It's a little loose, but a blind battle is such a loose formation. If you're folding too much, you're just letting the 3-bets run you over. I myself am 3-betting him pretty aggressively there. On the flop, he's got top pair and a 3-bet pot in a loose formation. It's a low top pair, but it's also vulnerable. I think I kind of like check raising there with top pairs and over pairs for the most part, just to punish the range betting. And then on the turn, slowing down is probably okay. And then on the river, when you make 2 pair, you really only lose to trap full houses, or aces. So I think I like him trying to value shove his king 9 there. He just got trapped by aces in a spot where I'm probably not going to be anywhere near that strong most of the time. I think his play is fine. I think the deck just did him dirty. And if I bet the turn, he probably still has to go with it. You can't, that deuce is not scary about me having improved. He's probably already stacking off with this top pair on the flop. I don't know that checking the flop necessarily got me any more money than if if I had bet the turn. I do think I like trapping overall there because some players will have check raise bluffs. They'll check raise their backdoor draws on the flop, looking to jam the turn if they actually pick up the equity of the draw and slowing down if they don't. But sometimes when that turn checks through, they'll be sitting there with a hand like queen high in a bloated pot, and they'll feel like they've got no choice but to bluff off with it. So I was trapping there to sort of induce bluffs from those backdoor draws that I just was not that scared of on that particular texture. Lower right-hand table, I defend a 3x open from middle position out of my big blind with Jack-9 suited. I checked range on the flop, and he King-4-4 two-tone board. He bets 2/3. I've got the flush draw, so I'm going to be continuing here. Checking. I'll look to bluff the river if the turn checks through, which it does. Yeah, probably don't want to be check raising on that flop too much. I guess some 4x type hands could do it. I feel like the flush draws for the most part play better because the big flush draws like ace high have some showdown value. In the smaller flush draws, I don't necessarily want to bloat the pot with. I want to be check raising with draws that make nut type hands as opposed to strong but second and third best type hands. Not really sure how much check, especially against the larger size and the tighter formation. When he bets 2/3, I'm not going to be getting too aggressive with the check raise bluffs. Against the smaller size, I'll be a bit more liberal with it. Lower right-hand table, I'll open ace-king from the button using the 44% range. Same player comes along from his big blind, defending for a call. I get an ace-jack-5 two-tone board. Be looking to put a lot of money in this pot on most runouts. Start out by range betting small after the flop check. He comes along for a call. Turn is an 8. Fairly blank, doesn't complete any draws. Does put a second flush draw up there. I was planning to play overbet or check. He turns and leads into me. I think I probably just want to keep my range altogether. You certainly can have raises, and it's probably more correct to do so, but it's very hard to split the range if you're raising strong hands and also having hands that continue for a call. Either way, ace-king is probably better played as continuing for a call and just looking to call or value bet most rivers. That river's pretty innocuous. Backdoor flush got there, but not the front door, and I do block the ace-high backdoor flush. He goes and checks the river, so I'm going to be looking to get myself some value right now with a strong ace. I think I absolutely can get paid off here by weaker aces. Just check fold is nonsense, but... it's possibly something like a spade draw that was trying to keep himself from getting blown off, though he still bet reasonably large, pretty close to pot. I was going to overbet, so maybe he saved himself a bit of money if that's what he was doing. I don't know. It's a strange line. I'm already a little suspicious this guy is a serious player. He's using 3x opens, which usually he opens more like 2.5x or even smaller up in these, larger stakes games where rake is not as big a factor and pre-flop folds aren't quite as important. And he's also taken a weird check call flop donk turn line, which a lot of regs won't really have in their arsenal that much. And, the donk bet is an indicator of a recreational player in many circumstances. Not all, but in many. And he's not topping off his stack, so we may have a live one here. Lower right-hand table, open ace-4 suited under the gun using an 18% range. Upper right-hand table, got a 3x open from the cutoff. I will 3-bet from the button with pocket nines, 3-betting a 12 to 13% range here. Yeah, it's probably 3-betting more like 12%. Against a smaller, more standard size, it'd be a little bit looser. His range should be a bit tighter with the size up. Not necessarily, but should be. Get an ace, queen, deuce, two-tone board. Going to go ahead and put in the small range bet and mostly checking back turns unless I happen to bink a third 9. Against a 3-bet from this imposition play, going to be very, very tight. It's a pretty healthy size 3-bet, well over 3x, closer to 4x, certainly a little bit, 3.5x, even more than that. Going to be very tight at a position, those, especially on the size up. Just go ahead and fold ace 4 suited. Three X open. He's been active. We'll keep an eye on him. It's Saturday. We should be able to find some good spots in these games. I'm just haven't been completely convinced I've found them as of quite yet. Maybe it's too early in the afternoon for the real degenerates to come out there and start clicking their buttons, but we'll see. We'll keep looking. Lower left-hand table. Been there for a couple overs. It seems pretty lousy as far as game selection goes. Seems to be a lot of guys playing reg type stats and sizings. Another potential wreck. He's not quite tapping up. He's been active through the first orbit. Could just be a hot run of cards, or he could just be a guy that can't help himself but get into those pots. Lower left-hand table, first hand at the table. I got a 2.5x open from the button. I can defend my big blind. This is right around the bottom of a defense range for me with the call, but I will go ahead and call with 8-7. Check range on the flop. Got a gut shot. Can pick up a double gutter on a double gutter or an open ender as well on a 9 or a 10. Probably be check raising here as a bluff, especially if we see a smaller size. He instead checks back, so I'm just going to go ahead and start probing at that turn small. Do have the open ender on that 9. He comes along. King got there. Doesn't help me, and I've got 8 high. I don't have any good removal to the real strong hand, so I'm not going to consider an overbet bluff, but I'm also not going to be checking down 8 high. So I'm going to follow through with one more barrel and try to fold him off something marginal. 6x, 9x type hands might get a little bit concerned that I've just got too many better hands with all those other cards up there, or the fact that 9-10 did get there, or Jack-10 did get there as well. Upper right-hand table, min-raise from the button. I'll be defending the min-raise from the button very widely, including with hands like 6-7 offsuit, and I'll check range on the flop. Goes and he min-bets. I'll check call with my second pair. He keeps checking. I think there's probably more merit in trying to bluff catch and induce another bluff by checking as opposed to trying to get called by ace high, pocket fours, something like that. I don't think it's probably a little thin. I'd be betting my queens, probably even my 9x type hands for the most part. I think the 6x is probably going to be better played as a check call to bluff catch. Yeah, we can go ahead and bluff catch there. Yeah, and we picked up a bluff off of Jack 8. Just not all that many worse hands that can really call. Some, lower pockets like 5s, 4s, 3s, and some ace high type hands that probably won't bet the river. But all those other weaker hands, all the Jack high, 10 high type nonsense is really almost going to be obligated to bluff. He should be bluffing that hand. I like the way he played it. I'd play it pretty much the same way he did. Sizing is slightly different, but same basic idea. This guy also playing slightly less than full stack, using less than ideal sizing, and been pretty active through the first orbit or two. Another potential fish. I doubt these guys all three are. I'm going to keep an eye on all of them and see who shows me to be the weak players I'm trying to target. This guy over here buying in for 741.78 is almost certainly a recreational player too. And we've got a guy up here at 822.45. And he's been calling more than raising pre-flop as well. Although it was out of the blind, so it's not necessarily dispositive he's a recreational player, but a pretty good clue. I'm trying to spot these guys as quickly as possible because they're just not it's not like 1-2 where they're going to be 2 or 3 of them on every table, and it really doesn't matter. You got to go after them quickly before another shark swoops up your prey. Lower left-hand table, going to open King 10 from middle position using a 21% range. I'm also going to tag this player with 9 blinds on the button. So that's a recreational player for sure. I will check range here on this Queen Jack 3 rainbow board. I'm calling off with the open-ender and the overcard. I'm getting direct odds even if I'm behind. He's got 7-9, so my king high is good, and he's drawn very, very thin against me. Even his 9 is in and out at that point. So I got him in with king high and had him pretty dominated. He was really looking just to peel a 7 there in order to outdraw king high. Upper right-hand table, got a 3x open under the gun. I will 3-bet from middle position with my pocket aces. 3-betting pretty tight here, about 8%. 9s plus, most of my suited broadways, ace-queen, ace-king, king-queen, maybe ace-5 suited. Even fold a few suited broadways, won't 3-bet them all. Got called in position and by the 3-better and get a lousy flop for the aces, a monotone flop where I do not have the relevant card. I'd be range checking even out of position to 1 player, much less against 2 here. If it checks to me again, I'm going to go ahead and probe that turn small. If he bets into me large, it gets a lot stickier. Yeah, I mean, I suppose he could have a flush. He could have a set of jacks, or I guess maybe even 9s or 5s to some extent. I think I do need to be calling here at least once, though. A player that called in position falls out. Don't get the 4th spade. He checks. I feel like now I probably need to be trying to get value off a King X type hand. Just going to go ahead and jam all in for slightly more than pot. A little bit on the thin side, but I just don't think he's going to have enough traps in his range to really punish me. And if I can go and get snapped off by a hand like King-Queen that maybe shouldn't have even been there in the first place, that's huge. Getting that extra value bet, a large one on the river in a big pot. Upper left-hand table, open King-9 from the button, using a 44% range. Upper left-hand table with King 9. I get 3-bet by the big blind. Just going to go ahead and fold King 9 offsuit. Lower right-hand table will open Queen Jack suited from the cutoff using a 28% range. He limped. We can confirm him as a weak player. This guy's played 19-6, but short. We'll go and give him a kind of in-between tag. In-between, uncertain. He's not really calling very much pre-flop. Not limping. Pretty aggressive. Maybe he's not necessarily a wreck. Can go ahead and remove his tag. This guy here with 66 blinds, though, is almost certainly going to be a weak player. Upper right-hand table will open Queen 10 from the button using a 44% range. Upper left-hand table will open King Queen from middle position using a 21% range. Weak player 3-bets me. 3-bets me small, but I don't want to get involved with these dominated offsuit Broadway hands like Queen 10. I'll call a lot with suited connectors, mid and small pairs against that. You can probably mix in some hands like Ace Queen, Ace Jack, but a hand like Queen 10 offsuit, I don't know. I'm trying to think exactly where I draw the line on this sort of thing. But yeah, probably Ace Jack, King Queen would be my weakest offsuit Broadway cards to call with. I'll call with all kinds of suited connectors and suited junk and pairs, especially against a weak player for the small size. Both those factors at play. Upper left-hand table called in position M by the small blind. Two suspected weaker players, but unconfirmed. I'll be checking range to the in-position player, regardless of if he's a strong player or a weak player. Flop checks around. Turner's the 3. Small blind's leading out. He could have 3s, 4s, 5s types hands in his range for super strong hands, or he could have lots of pairs like 6s plus, maybe 6s through about 9s or 10s without having 3-bet. I'd expect a decent bit. He can actually have a lot of good hands here. He's betting the large size multi-way. I'm out. Lower left-hand table, got a 2.5x open from middle position. I will 3-bet from the small blind with Ace-King suited. 3-betting about 8-9% in that spot. Pocket 8s plus suited Broadways, Ace-Queen plus, and a couple of suited wheel aces should get you there. Lower left-hand table, get a 2.5x open from middle position. I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet from the cutoff with pocket queens. 3-betting about 10% in this spot. Upper left-hand table, under the gun, min raises. I will defend my big blind for a call with 4-7 suited and check range on the flop. Against a pot-sized bet, I've got 7 high, no back doors, except for, I suppose, a backdoor gut shot on an easy fold. Against queens, I get called out of position and get a 10-7-4 rainbow board. Going to go ahead and put in a small range bet on that one. I got check called. Let's see here. With the 5s, I get a 3-bet, and then I overcaller behind me because I'm closing the action and getting a good price with the smaller size 3-bet and the overcall. I'm going to go ahead and get in there with 5s and try to hit the third one. Trying to get 9s in pre-flop against this 20-blind stack. Ran into kings, so be it. Get my sizing right for the barrel with queens. I bet about 250, bet pretty close to pot, and set myself up to jam the river. Not that worried about the 4, although he could have some ace-4, I suppose. Calls again. River is the deuce of clubs. I mean, he could have pocket 10s, he could have pocket 7s, he could have quad 4s. I guess he could maybe have some backdoor flushes. Trying to decide if I really want to be value jamming here with my queens. I guess I can get paid by some 10x type hands and some jacks. This one's kind of close, but we're not really significantly deeper. I don't think that really changes the calculus any. I think this might be slightly on the thin side. It's pretty close. I'm going to check it back just because, I mean, he absolutely can have some backdoor flushes, some 10s and 7s full, and some quad 4s. And I can probably get paid off by jacks, but that's a lot of combinations that are auto calls. The jacks and the 10x combos are not necessarily. And a backdoor flush completed. Don't even block it. I'm going to take my showdown. And yeah, he did backdoor a flush, and he did not get the rest of my stack. I'm okay with that, given that I didn't get burned by it. Now, upper left-hand table, I open 8-7 suited from the cutoff, and the small blind goes ahead and pops me up about 4x. I will defend for a call with 8-7 suited. Defend with a lot of my suited connectors and gappers here. It's a reasonably loose formation. I don't really like his pre-flop play of defending the 3-bet with 7-6 suited. I think that's just far too loose in that formation. But it worked out for him, so what do I know? I get continuation bet here. It looks like it's about 35-40% of that pot. And I've got 8 high, a little bit of backdoor and a backdoor flush draw, but I just don't see too much merit. There may be some merit in raising these. I haven't gotten into the research on that too much, but there may be some merit in mixing in exploitive raises and 3-bet pots. Not something I do a whole lot of right now, just to try to keep my range together and just float for calls with my monsters and my speculative hands and the stuff that's really got nothing going for it. I just pitch. But that might be the kind of candidate for a bluff raise if I do, in fact, want to have bluff raisers there. Something to put in the back of my mind to look into next time I'm in the lab. I'm pretty sure that bluff raising, it has some merit in those kind of spots in position in 3-bet pots, even though it's completely not, or usually not very well balanced. Because I've seen other players, I think from certain stables, probably some of the poker detox guys that try to bluff raise those small bets in 3-bet pots and will fold if you jam over the top of them in a lot of cases. So I think there are some guys that are doing that. So some people have done some research to see that maybe makes some sense to do. I'm just at this point in time, I'm not one of them. So I'll take the 0 EV move and just fold my 8 high instead. Get a 2.4x open from the cutoff on the lower right-hand table. I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet with my ace-king, 3-betting about 10% here. Quickly calls, get a jack 7-7 rainbow board. I'm going to go ahead and put in a small range bet. I'll get a 3x open from a tight player in the upper right-hand table. I am still going to 3-bet with jacks, but 3-bet a bit tighter, probably about 8% instead of about 10%. Probably 3-bet 10s are better. Most of my suited broadways and a few 9x and wheel ace suited type hands, and ace king, of course. Get a 3x open from the button. Going to go ahead and defend for a call with ace-10 offsuit in the upper left-hand table and check range on the flop. Now I get 4-bet by a player that's tight, a little bit short, and 4-bet to a size that he cannot ever 4-bet fold. I would normally be flatting hands like queens and jacks against a 4-bet in what's effectively a tighter formation because this guy's so tight. I'm treating him more like a middle position or under the gun opener, and also trapping with aces. Because of his wonky sizing that takes away the ability to have 4-bets and folds, where he's not 4-betting small enough, I'm just going to go ahead and either jam back in my strong hands, kings, aces, ace-king, and probably queens, but I think I can actually muck jacks. So his tight image and his poor pre-flop sizing are going to let me get away from jacks in a situation where maybe I otherwise shouldn't be able to, at least depending on how the flop were to come out after a call. Upper left-hand table, going to open queen 3 suited, blind on blind, using the 45% range. Get called, and I'll check range to the big blind on the 7-4 deuce rainbow board. Lower left-hand table, I will open ace-king from middle position using a 21% range. Big blind checks back. Turn is a deuce, putting a backdoor flush draw up there. I'm just going to go ahead and start probing at this turn small and try to steal the pot with my queen high. If I smack a queen, I can value bet. That's a pretty good hand to continue bluffing. Well, I'm going to continue bluffing in with my queen high. That's a pretty good card for an overbet bluff, given that I block ace-3 and 3-6 and don't block the flush draws. I'm actually going to go ahead and use that in this particular spot. Don't overbet bluff a ton, especially blind on blind, but given that I think he's going to be pretty weak and I've got real good removal to the absolute monster type hands he could have backed into, I guess a 6 would also be a good card to have. It's probably a little better to overbet bluff with the 6 and use the smaller size with the 3. So that's probably a mild mistake, but I do like in how I was constructing my bluffing range between overbets and standard sizes on that river. But I do think there was at least a lot of logic in using the 3 because it also blocks a lot of straights he could have backed into. Lower left-hand table, I get a 3x open from the button. I will go ahead and 3-bet my small blind with pocket queens. 3-betting very aggressively in this loose formation here against the button. 3-betting 14-15%. Lower left-hand table, we had a blind on blind limp. I raised up with king 9. He checks to me after calling the raise, and I'm going to go ahead and range bet small on the king 10-8 rainbow board. Upper left-hand table, I will open king jack suited from the cutoff using a 28% range. Lower right-hand table, I will open king 10 suited from middle position using a 21% range. My king jack gets 3-bet by the cutoff player. Lower right-hand table will just check range out of position to 2 players. Going to go ahead and defend for a call against that, defending pretty widely in a fairly loose formation here. Lower right-hand table, it checks through. I've now got a gut shot with that jack turn to go with the ace-6-3 rainbow flop. I'm going to go ahead and probe the turn small and plan to blast the river on pretty much any card, maybe not a king or a 10. And he goes and he bets half pot on the queen 10-4 rainbow board. I've got an open ender and an overcard, so I'm obviously going nowhere. Come along for the call. He continues betting. He bets about 60% a pot, 247 into 434. I've still got a very nice draw I can come along with, so I'm going to call again and see if I can't hit. Been living clean, so I'm running pure. I binked the nuts in a nice bloated pot where he's going to find himself in a real bad spot here in a minute. Now he goes and he checks back. I'm, of course, going to be moving all in right here. I guess I can also have... Queens are probably 4-bet pre-flop, but I can have 10s or 4s. I probably don't have 5s or aces, but I can have lots of hands like ace-queen. Maybe some ace-10 gets there. And, of course, king-jack. I'm also going to have some busted draws like jack-9, maybe some backdoor flush draws I pick up on the turn that still float. Would have rather he just blasted off on the river and paid me. Now he gets a chance to get away, but I can't control what they do. There we go. He had pocket kings, so he just put me on some kind of bluff, I suppose. Jack-9 or busted backdoor flush draws are legitimately in my range there. Upper right-hand table, I'll open pocket jacks from middle position using a 21% range. Good thing I didn't peel that king on the river. That might have been a nasty spot for me, as I just don't know that I can get away from top pair that I bink on the river as an overcard. Also with removal to the straights with the jack. Lower right-hand table, going to open ace-king from the button using the 44% range. Lower left-hand table will defend the 28 blind player middle position's min-raise open from my big blind with jack-6 suited by calling. And I'll check fold, jack high, backdoor draw type stuff over here on the lower left-hand table. Lower right-hand table, he checks to me after calling from the big blind. I will range bet small on the king, queen, deuce rainbow board. Check calls, turn is an offsuit 4, putting a backdoor flush draw up there. I guess they're all offsuit 4s on a rainbow flop, but turn is a 4, making a backdoor flush draw regardless. Upper left-hand table, going to open ace-king from middle position using a 21% range. Lower right-hand table, that's going to be overbet or check spot for me. Ace-king strong enough hand to be overbetting here. Overbetting queens, 4s, deuces, king-queen, probably king-4 and king-deuce suited for the most part. And hands like queen-4 suited as well. And then ace-king, I don't know, maybe king-jack, could probably go either way. And I've also got flush draws, open-ended straight draws like 3-5, jack-10. Now let's see here. I can probably try to get a third straight of value off of this. I'd rather the flush bricked or that I had the flush blocker, but I don't get to pick the runouts. I take my runouts as I find them. I will try to get some value bet in here. Upper left-hand table, normally I would stack off with ace-king. He had king-5, rivered 2-pair. Say let be. Normally I'd stack up, but we're deeper. It's not that loose a formation. I'm just going to go ahead and call and play out of position for a call with ace-king here instead. A little bit deeper. I don't want to be blindly stacking off queens and ace-king when we're getting up 170, 180 blinds deep. Instead, the continuation bets, and for a pretty strong size, I think I'll just go ahead and check fold in that spot. Lower right-hand table, get a limper blind on blind. I'll pop him up, something like my button raise first in range. Use king-8 offsuit. It's right along the cusp of what I would open in that spot or raise, but I think it's okay. Checking, of course, would also be just fine. I'm going to go ahead and range bet small after the small blind checks on the queen 10-7 two-tone board. Do have some cards I can barrel on that give me some draws. A card like a jack gives me an open-ender. A king, of course, gives me top pair. 9 could go either way. Maybe a 9's not all that strong because of the way the board coordinates. Turn is the deuce, a flush closing deuce of spades. No spade in my hand. I'm content to just go ahead and check this one back and look to make a bluff catcher or bluff raise the river. He overbets. I don't really get into bluff raising overbets all that much here. A lot of the stuff he could legitimately check call with got there, like 10x and spade draws. I guess he could have some busted straight draws that check called, but I don't see any reason to start becoming a hero with a call or a raise in a spot like this. I think I can just let that one go. Upper left-hand table, open 10-9 from the button. Using a 44% range. Oh no, it looks like my tables are glitching out here. Ignition thinks I've reached the maximum number of tables, but my fourth table is just a black screen of death. Lower right-hand table, I'll open 10s from the button using the 44% range. May have to just cut this session off, unfortunately, as I can't get my fourth table. Gonna have to restart the computer and try to fix this. Upper right-hand table, I will open King 6 suited from the button using the 44% range. Oh, my HUD is up, but the table itself is blacked out. What a world we live in here. Hilarious existence. Lower right-hand table, I will open King Jack from middle position using the 21% range. Get a min-raise blind on blind in the lower right-hand table. They fold almost nothing to that, and certainly not a suited hand like 10-6 suited. They'll come along for a call. Upper right-hand table will open Ace-4 suited from middle position using the 21% range. The razor checks to me in the blind battle. I'm going to go ahead and stab for half pot. Upper right-hand table, get 3-bet in position. I'll just go ahead and fold a hand like Ace-4 suited. The blind battle on the lower right-hand table, pretty good card for me. It's the 10, giving me second pair. Now, I don't necessarily want to do anything like start blasting and bloating this pot and tripling off with my second pair. But I do have a hand that can check back and bluff catch the river a lot. Now, we get a very weird line here. This guy is probably a weak player by his pre-flop sizing and by donking the turn for a small size. Or maybe he's some kind of world beater with a strategy I just can't comprehend. Either way, it's unusual, to say the least. I'll be calling with my second pair. River, not so great, putting the 4 straight out there. I do still have short on value. He checks. I'll take my short on value with my pair. And so he had turned 2 pair with 10-9. Get a 2.5x open from middle position, the upper left-hand table. I've got King Deuce suited in the button. There's been a call on the there's been a call on the button. I've got King Deuce suited in the big blind. I will complete for a call and then check range on the flop. That player who I thought was a little bit questionable because of his pre-flop sizing and turn donk now is open limping the button. I've got pocket 9, so I'm going to be popping him up there, popping him up with about 12%. Using a large pre-flop size in about 150% of pot, so pop it up to 55. Raising with something like 8s or better, suited broadways, Ace-10 plus, King-Jack plus, and maybe any 2 cards, 9 or higher, that are suited. Gets you to about 13%. Flop checks around. I'm going to go ahead and start jabbing it small in the upper left-hand table. I do have a pair that I can turn into 2 pair, or I can keep bluffing on the river on some runouts as well. That recreational player limps then calls. I'm going to go ahead and put in a small range bet on the Queen-7 deuce 2-tone board. Mostly be checking turns. River is a jack that completes some straights and flushes. I've got no choice but to turn my 5th pair into a bluff, so I will continue betting with that, trying to fold him off something like Ace-9, pocket 10s. He quickly folds. Lower right-hand table, he called my small bet. Turn is the jack. I'm going to go ahead and check right here now with a pair with some showdown value, but I'm also way behind any kind of queen hand that called the flop. River is the 4. A player like this, he's shown small bet sizing tendencies. He's been pretty passive. When he did donk lead into me with that turn 2 pair that was still a pretty strong hand at that point, he used a small size. I don't think he's going to go ahead and start bluffing too much with deuce X, busted spade draws, but I do think I can actually get called down by a deuce or a 7 way more than I should. I'm going to go ahead and get a bit mergy and try to get called by worse here. It's probably not dramatically more profitable than checking, but I think against a guy the way I perceive this guy to be playing, it's a little bit better. Plus, I'm going to be bluffing at this guy with all kinds of ace-high, king-high type hands that didn't bet the turn, and I don't want to just show those down. Doesn't work, I don't get called. I'm sure he didn't really fold better, or at least I'd be very, very surprised if he did. I like trying to get value unless there's a compelling reason not to. Shutting down here because of the technical difficulties once this orbit wraps up. sure dragging out this hand so I can see one more hand dealt to me. That's for damn sure. And after all that, it's 8-4 opposite, which I'll be folding. And that's it. Thanks to the technical difficulties by ignition, I'm pulling the plug a little bit early. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Until next time, this is Charlie Murphy signing off.